So here's an intro video about how to set up the Notion timestamp within Companion. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to need an account with Notion. So what I have right here is an empty workspace that has an empty page in it. So we're going to need a workspace and we're going to need a page. Now, the other thing that we're going to need to do is under Settings and Members in your workspace is we need to set up an integration. So for this case, what we're going to do is we are going to create our own integration. So click on Develop Your Own Integrations. That's going to open up in a new tab, and I'm going to say New Integration. I'm going to give it a name of Timestamper, and I'm not going to worry about an image right now. I'm going to associate it with the correct workspace. So in my case, that's Companion. And then I'm going to leave all of the capabilities just set to default. Don't need to do anything else different there. And I'm going to click on Submit. Now at this point, we've created an integration and we're going to need a token. So we'll copy the token again in a few moments. So we'll go ahead and close this. And if we close this out and then go back into Settings and Members, when we go down to Integrations again, we're going to see that timestamper that I just created. And we'll copy the token in just a few moments. This is how we'll copy the token. Now you'll also notice that I am in the browser and not inside the Notion application. We're going to need to be in the web browser because we're going to need to grab some values from within the URL. So that's what we're going to start with. Okay, so now we have an integration set up. We have a page. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and give my page a name, and I'm just going to call it Test Page. And what you'll notice here is up in the URL, it says test page dash and then a string. We're going to copy this string in just a few moments. So let's go ahead and go into Companion and let's add a connection for the timestamper. So I'll search for Notion and click on Add. I'm going to change the label to timestamp-1 in case I wanted to have multiples. I need my Notion API key. So that's where we'll go back over into Notion. We'll go to Settings and Members. Click on Integrations, and here we'll just copy the internal integration token. So I copy that one. Let's go back over into Companion, and now let's go ahead and paste in the API key. Now we also need the parent page ID. So let's go back over into Notion. We'll close this. And the ID that we need is just this string part. So notice I could change test page to test page 3. That changes up here, but this value of the string stays consistent. So we're going to just copy what's after the dash. So I'm going to go ahead and take that and paste it back into my parent page ID. And then let's go ahead and click on Save. Now what we need to do is go ahead and go into Buttons, and let's create our buttons. So the first one we're going to create is for starting a session. So I'm going to say regular button, click on Browse, and for timestamp 1, I'm going to say Start a Session. Now I have a choice here. I could create a database name. If I leave the database name blank, then it will create a name for me. I can also choose to automatically create the start record. In my case, I'm not going to automatically started. I'm going to set up a separate entry for starting. So in my case, let's give the database name a MyDB. What you may want to do is if you're tracking along a YouTube video, you might want to give it the name of the video, whatever you want it to be. But in my case, I'm just going to say MyDB. And I'm going to go ahead and call this Start. Next up, let's create another button that is going to be our Create a Marker. We'll click on Add, and this is just Create. And we can put in a message if we want, or we can leave the message blank. This might be the case to where I want to say create, and maybe let's call this just Create-1, and I'll say this is for Create-1. Let's go ahead and create another button that's another Create, and we'll call it Create-2. So we'll click here, create a marker. We'll call this one Create-2. Again, a message is not required. And let's give it a button text of Create-2. And then finally, let's go ahead and create one more Create button. And in this case, I'm just going to copy and paste. And I'm going to change this to just create, and there's going to be no message at all. Okay, so what we have is a start, a create one, a create two. Both of these have their own messages. And then just a create button that has no message at all. And then finally, let's create a stop button. So we'll say regular button. We're going to give it the text of stop. And underneath timestamp, we will click on stop a session. And what we'll see is, once this starts up, what the stop does. Okay, so we have a start, a couple of specific messages, one that's just generic, that doesn't have any kind of message at all, and then a stop. So let's go back over into Notion. I'm going to pull this page off so we can watch what happens here. And then I'm also going to go ahead and slide over our screen and just show this admin screen. So if I click on Start, remember that Start did not automatically create a record for us. When I click on Start, and you'll notice what happened is we have a red box. Well, let's go debug this. If you go ahead and click on Log, what you'll see is that there is an object not found. It can't find this. Make sure the relevant pages and databases are shared with the integration. So we messed up when we were doing our integration. And because of this message, what we need to do is we need to integrate this page with the integration that we created. So let's click on Share. And we are going to invite. And we want to invite Timestamper. And then click on Invite. And now we can see that Timestamper can edit with this workspace. Now let's go back over into Companion and let's click on Start. And what you'll see is our MyDB, which is what we set up inside of our button here. Remember that we created Start, and we gave it a database name of MyDB, so this is just going to be the name. If we expand on the left nav here and click into MyDB, or however you want to do it, we can see that a table's been created for us. Now you'll also notice that there is no message, but it also creates a timestamp, some millis, a create time, a lapse time, and then logging details. This is the default table that's created. In fact, there's a couple other fields that are over here as well. So first off, let's go ahead and go click on Create-1. So when we click on Create-1, we can see that the session was started. Here was the time that it was created. Also what the milliseconds are since epoch, the create time that's a little more human readable, and the elapsed time. So since this is the first record, the elapsed time is 0. So this is the starting record. We also see the timestamp value that you would be able to use in case you're creating a YouTube video. So this would be the 000 of that video. Let's scroll back to the left here. We can see that the message is Create-1. If we click on Create-2, then you can see that Create-2 was inserted for us. And we can check and see what the elapsed time is. In this case, it's been about 41 seconds. Or if we look over here to the right, we can see it's 0041. So if you're laying out a specific show length and you know exactly where you want these timestamps to come in, but you just don't know when they're going to come in, you can create the buttons that has the message that you want. And then you can go off and just pull them out a little bit later. Now I can also go ahead and click on Create. And you'll see that there is another entry created for me, in this case at 72 seconds or at 1 minute and 12 seconds. But again, no message. So I could go in and just fill this in a little bit later. I can say this is my message. Again, this would be after the fact. Once I'm completely finished and I know that the show is over, I'm going to go ahead and click on Stop. And what happens is it puts in a stop record and it just lets me know, okay, this was the complete end of whatever that I'm doing. And if I try to create any other records in here, so if I click on Create 1, nothing is entered because there is not a current session started right now. So as a quick or not so quick recap, you need to be inside of Notion, inside of a browser, not inside the Notion application. You create an integration. Once you've created the integration, you need to associate the integration with the page. In my case, my page is test page 3. And under Share, I've just integrated in the integration. And then within Companion, I have set up a handful of different buttons. In my case, I need to be able to start a session, I need a create, and I need a stop. I can also create specific create buttons that has messages that I can go ahead and include, or I can create a create button that has no message, and it'll just, when it creates the button, it will enter in an empty message, and you can go back in and add that in a little bit later. So that's the basics of setting up the Notion Timestamper with Companion.